Hello. Now we'll discuss about str and repr method, right? Now, before we learn how this method work, right, let's first implement how the repr and str method. Like here we are just trying to implement the repr method first, right? So here we have this person class. This is the init method and this is the repr method. Now, when this method is being called, it will first print repr called, and then it will return this string, right? So it will return this person name with the name value and the age value, right? So let's run this first. Now here we are getting the object P belongs to the person class. Now when we try to display how the object looks, right? So when we try to print the P without print function, right? So when we try to see that, here we see that this repr method has been called, right? So when we try to check how the string representation of object looks like, right, it automatically call the repr method, right? And here let's call the same object with the print functions. So when we call the same object with the print functions, right? So here let's see that here we see that we are still calling the repr method, right? Now now when we call the repr method, right? So of course this repr method will be called. So what we see over here is when we try to see the string representation of object, the repr method has been called. When we try to see the when we try to apply the print function, right, on the object, we are still calling the repr method. And now when we again call the repr method, right? So here still the repr method is being called, right? Now let's see what happens when we call the str method, right? Str functions. Again, str function has not implemented yet, but again we can see the string representation of the functions, right? So here when we see the str of p, now when we call the str function over here, it is still calling the repr method only. So in all the cases, whether you print the object without the print function, with the print function, with the repr function, and with the str function, in all the cases, repr method is being called, right? Now let's implement the str method as well. So here we have the repr method, and now we have the str method. Now when this str method will be called, it will print str called, and then it will return the self.name. So it will return the name of the object, right? So let's see that. Again, here we're getting the object P. Now, when we try to see with P over here without any print function, we just try to see the string representation of the object. We see that the repr math function has been called. It is still calling the repr function. But when we call the print function, when we try to see the object with the print function, this time the str method has been called. That means what? If either of the function, whether let's say that if we have this repr and str both, right? So str will be called if you see the object with the help of print functions, right? And again, when we call the str, it will again call the str, but when we call the repr, it will call the repr method. So what is the takeaway? So the takeaway is if we have if we have the only repr method, right, it will call the repr everywhere, right? If we do not have str method, that means it will call the repr in either of the way, right? But if we have the both functions, right? So with the help of print function, when we see the object with the print function, it will call the repr, it will call the str function. Otherwise, it will call the repr functions, right? Now let's see what happens if we do not have str and repr method both. So here we have these two class, person and the point. Let's run this. Now here we are getting the object of these two classes. We're trying to see this repr functions, like we are trying to apply the repr function on the both the object. We see that if the repr function has not defined, that means it already had the Python already create the repr functions. That means Python already have the default repr functionality, right? Which gives this result, right? And so here we can see that Python provides the default representation of object that contain this is the class name and this is the memory address of the object, right? Now when we call the str, right? We get the same result. That means if we do not define either of the repr and str, it will give you this default, which is the repr representation of the object, right? Now let's go back to the original person class over here. Now we have this str method here. Now this time we have removed the repr method. We have not defined the repr method. When we run this, here we create the object. Now we see without print function, we see that this is this default output we are getting. That means str method is being only called when you call or when you see the object with the print function. This is what we have learned so far. When we call repr of p, we are getting the same result, right? We can see that we are getting the same result, right? So if you do not have repr method, Python use the default one, right? It does not use this custom str method over here. But when we use the print function, we are getting the str method. When we use the str function, here we can see that it is calling the str method over here, right? Now, now know, now we know how repr and how str function is being called, right? Now there are various formatting functions. We'll also prefer using str functions when it is available, right? Like again, we have the same person functions, like same person class. We have this repr and str class both, right? repr and str method both creating the object. Now when we see, now here we say that now when we try to see the string formatting with the object, when we try to see the string formatting here, what we see is we see that with the string formatting, str function is being called. So str function automatically calls the string representation of the object, right? When we try to do the str formatting, this is the latest way of str formatting, right? This is with the format functions, right? And this is the earlier versions, like with the, so like this is this like Python 2 versions of doing the string formatting, right? When we try to do this, here we see that in all the cases we have called the str function. That means string functions call the, or like string formatting or other string functionality call the str method, right? If it is available. Yeah, this is it all about str and repr functions. Thank you very much.